Hi everyone! The goal of this video is to help you understand how to read and begin to process these sources that you are finding in your research. So the first thing that you want to do when you have a potential source and you're thinking about will this work or not, or how am I going to use it in my paper, which are questions that you will need to answer in the coming weeks. The first thing you can do is read the abstract or summary if there is one. This is important because it really sums up the article or the video, and it will help you to understand if it's relevant or not to your topic and whether or not you should use your time reading the article. Now keep in mind that sometimes in research we look for the answer to our research question, and very few times will we find one article that directly addresses our question in detail and answers all of it. A lot of the times you have to use those sub-questions and ask these sort of small questions to piece together an argument and an answer to the question that you're asking. So keep that in mind too. So if you're asking about how does meditation affect happiness? Yes, you might search for that in the sources, and you might look for an overall article on meditation and happiness. But what's more likely is you're going to look for something on heart rate and meditation, right? So how does meditation impact heart rate? And then I'm going to find from that article that meditation slows your heart rate, which makes you calmer and less anxious, which makes people happier. Okay, so do you see how I did that? Sometimes we have to look up those subtopics to find our answer. So when you're reading the abstract or summary, think about how it might fit into your paper, and don't discount something because it doesn't directly answer your overall question. But if it could somehow build your argument or add context, it might be valuable. Secondly, like I said before, if it feels like this isn't going to work for your topic, then you don't have to waste your time reading it. There are other ways to figure out if it will work for you or not. You could also, if there's not an abstract or a summary, you could read the first and last paragraphs of the article and see if that helps, or the beginning and end of a video. If you have a book with a table of contents, or you have subject headings, even first sentences of paragraphs, those are going to be guides for where in the article you need to read. Let's say you have an article that's 200 pages. You do not have to read that whole article or an entire book or an entire volume. You need to find the place where the information is that you need. So using these things can help you zero in on that area and not read more than you have to. Obviously, you should understand the context for the book or the article or the video, but you don't have to read all of it. When you do find something that's relevant to your paper, highlight the section, make a note of it, and I would recommend starting to copy and paste things into a Word document. So if there's a paragraph or a section from an article, or you want to copy and paste something over from a video transcript or a podcast transcript, start taking that stuff and compiling it in a single Word document. Make sure that you give the name of the source so that you don't have issues later when you're trying to cite that information. And make sure that you copy and paste it or type it accurately as it was, so that you have the initial wording there. Later on in your paper, you can decide, do I want to quote it, paraphrase it, summarize it? But for now, having that initial wording will be good for you, because then you have every choice. You can quote, you can summarize, you can paraphrase. Annotating as you read is definitely really helpful. You can acknowledge sort of where it fits in your overall essay, as well as annotating in the margins. And then, like I said, you want to be creating this document with quotations. I call it a meat platter, and you're actually going to turn this in soon. So if you start working on this as you're reading, it will be helpful to you. I call it a meat platter because we learned the sandwich method, right? So essentially, after you have your meat platter, you will just have to add the bread to make your sandwiches. And I will lead you through that process in the coming weeks, so don't worry too much about that. All right, then we want to start to process as we're reading, process our research. So you may feel like you're a bit lost in the ocean of your question and your research and your articles, and that's normal and it's okay. But some of you may want to feel a little bit more grounded in what you're doing, and you might want to know where you are headed. So start with this. Based on what you've read so far, what is your research question? Is it the same or has it shifted? Either way is fine, but what is your research question at this point? Secondly, what is your thesis? Your thesis should answer your research question. So if your research question is, let me go to the next slide, what is the impact of meditation on happiness? You can see here I have a thesis. Meditation has a biological effect on happiness. Okay, so in this instance, I'm answering that question in a very specific way. I would call this a topical outline, informal way to start to bring your ideas together. Even if your thesis may change along the way, try to come up with a thesis for where you are right now. So my thesis, like I said, for this is meditation has a biological effect on happiness. And then from there, I would say, okay, what are some of the things I need to talk about to develop and prove this point? So then I would just start making a bullet list. I probably should talk about neuroplasticity, heart rate, pain regulation, making meditation a habit. And as you start there's no number that you have to have now or later in terms of like number of topics. But as you start to list these, I think you'll begin to start to see your paper taking shape a bit and sort of where you're headed. And I think for a lot of you, it will take some anxiety out of the process that you may be feeling. Last step would then be to take these topics, this is what I had on the previous screen, and turn them into topic sentences. So, for instance, for neuroplasticity, meditation increases neuroplasticity and thus increases the number of reactionary pathways. So, what I'm doing is I'm just expanding upon this by turning it into a sentence. I'm connecting it to my thesis statement and kind of bringing it all full circle. And you can see then maybe I would have a paragraph or even a section of my essay dedicated to this. Secondly, like I was talking about earlier, heart rate and meditation. Like we're not always going to find a source that answers our question directly, but we may find sources that build to answer our question. So meditation slows the heart rate to help people feel calm and less anxious. Again, I'm tying that back into the thesis statement by making it a complete sentence. And then I will probably have a section or a paragraph in my paper on this topic and on and on. I think it's a great idea for you guys to get started on this now so that you're beginning to think about where you are headed. Even if it may change, it's fine. This is all a process. But beginning to lay some things down and start thinking through what you found will be really beneficial to you in the long run, especially if you're feeling anxiety about how this is going to pull together in the end. All right, I believe in you. I know you can do this, and I hope that you believe in yourself. Have a great rest of the week.